Have you ever seen how quickly the highest mountain can crumble into the deepest valley? Nadia thought she had won everything. The man, the money, the mansion. She had thrown out the only woman who truly loved Kelvin, believing her victory was complete. But what she didn't know was that when you plant seeds of evil, you will harvest a storm. And that storm was coming faster than she could imagine. The gates of Sunset Haven, old people's home, closed behind Kelvin's mother with a sound that echoed like the door of a tomb. She stood in the dimly lit hallway, clutching a single bag containing all her worldly possessions. The smell of disinfectant mixed with age and sadness filled her nostrils. "Welcome to your new home," said Sister Grace, the nurse on duty, her voice mechanical and without warmth. "Room 14 is yours. Dinner is at 6, lights out at 9. Rules are on the wall." Kelvin's mother nodded weakly, her heart breaking with every step down the narrow corridor. Behind the doors, she could hear the sounds of forgotten souls, some crying, others muttering to themselves, many sitting in complete silence. This was where children sent their parents to die slowly, away from sight, away from conscience. Her room was small and cold, a single bed, a wooden chair, and a window that looked out to nothing but a brick wall. She placed her bag on the bed and sat down heavily, tears flowing like a river that had been held back too long. "Oh God," she whispered into the empty room. "What have I done wrong to deserve this? I loved my son more than my own life. And now I am here, thrown away like garbage." Meanwhile, back at the mansion, Nadia stood before the gold-framed mirror in what was once the mother's bedroom. She had immediately claimed it as her dressing room, filling it with designer clothes and expensive jewelry. Her reflection smiled back at her, beautiful and victorious. "Finally," she breathed, adjusting her diamond necklace, "the old witch is gone. Now Kelvin belongs to me completely." She walked downstairs where Kelvin sat slumped in his leather chair, staring at the floor. His face was heavy with guilt and confusion. Nadia approached him with fake tears glistening in her eyes. "Darling," she whispered softly, "I know tonight was hard for you, but please don't blame yourself. You did what was necessary. Your mother, she was hurting you, hurting us. Sometimes love means making difficult choices." Kelvin looked up at her, his eyes searching her face. "But Nadia, she raised me. She sacrificed everything for me." "How could I—" "Shh," Nadia interrupted, kneeling beside his chair and taking his hands. "You are too kind, too pure. That's why I love you, but sometimes kindness can be weakness. Your mother was holding you back, poisoning your mind against me. Now we can finally be happy, just the two of us." Her words were honey mixed with poison, sweet to the taste, but deadly to the soul. Kelvin's broken heart clung to her comfort like a drowning man clutching driftwood. "You're right," he whispered, allowing her to embrace him. "We can finally be at peace." Nadia smiled against his chest, but her eyes burned with cold satisfaction. The first part of her plan was complete. The days that followed were like a dream for Nadia and a nightmare for Kelvin's mother. While Nadia enjoyed breakfast in bed, spa treatments, and shopping sprees, the elderly woman struggled to adapt to life among strangers who had also been discarded by their families. At Sunset Haven, Kelvin's mother found herself surrounded by people whose minds had been broken by years of loneliness. Mrs. Johnson, her roommate, talked to invisible children all day. Mr. Abdul screamed at night, reliving battles from wars that ended decades ago. And Sister Mary constantly accused everyone of stealing her non-existent jewelry. "You there, new woman?" Sister Mary cornered her one morning, her eyes wild and accusing. "You took my golden bracelet, didn't you? Give it back or I'll report you to the police." "Sister Mary, I didn't take anything," Kelvin's mother replied gently, but the old woman grabbed her arm roughly. "Liar! Thief! All of you are thieves here," she screamed, attracting the attention of other residents who began to gather around, some joining in the accusations, others just staring blankly. The nurses rarely intervened unless there was actual violence. Most of them were overworked and underpaid, treating the residents more like burdens than human beings. Kelvin's mother learned quickly that survival here meant enduring everything in silence. At night, she lay on the thin mattress, listening to the sounds of madness echoing through the walls. She prayed constantly, not for herself, but for her son. "Lord," she whispered, "open his eyes. Let him see the truth before it's too late. I don't care what happens to me, but please don't let that woman destroy my child." Meanwhile, Kelvin and Nadia lived like royalty. He took her to Paris for a week, then to Dubai for shopping, then to the Maldives for relaxation. Nadia's Instagram account overflowed with pictures of herself in designer clothes, expensive restaurants, and luxury resorts. She had become the envy of every woman in Lagos. "Darling," she purred one evening as they sat on the balcony of their hotel suite overlooking the Indian Ocean, "I have never been happier in my life. You have given me everything I ever dreamed of." Kelvin smiled, watching her face glow in the sunset light. "You deserve it all, my love. You stood by me through difficult times. You changed for me, for us." Nadia kissed him softly, but behind her smile, her mind was already planning the next purchase, the next trip, the next way to drain his wealth for her own pleasure. But while they played in paradise, Kelvin's business empire began to crack. Board meetings were missed, important decisions were delayed, and key investors started to lose confidence. His company's stocks dropped steadily, but Kelvin was too intoxicated by love and luxury to notice the warning signs. "Sir," his personal assistant called one morning while they were in Monte Carlo, "the board wants to schedule an emergency meeting. The Dubai contract fell through, and the shareholders are asking questions." Kelvin waved dismissively, not looking up from the breakfast table where Nadia was showing him jewelry catalogs. "Handle it, Johnson. I'm busy. Whatever they need, just figure it out." "But sir, this is serious." "I said handle it," Kelvin snapped, hanging up the phone. He turned back to Nadia with a smile. "Sorry about that, love. Business can wait. This is our time." Nadia beamed, but even she was beginning to notice the tension in his voice when business matters came up. However, as long as the money kept flowing, she didn't care about the source. Back at Sunset Haven, Kelvin's mother's health began to deteriorate. The stress, the poor food, and the constant harassment from unstable residents took their toll on her aging body. She developed a persistent cough that grew worse each day. Her appetite disappeared, and she became thinner and weaker. One morning, she collapsed while trying to reach the bathroom. Mrs. Johnson found her on the floor, breathing shallowly, her skin pale and cold. "Nurse, nurse!" Mrs. Johnson screamed, momentarily lucid in her panic. "The new lady is dying." Sister Grace rushed in, checked her pulse, and immediately called for an ambulance. As they loaded her onto the stretcher, she whispered through her pain, "Please, call my son. Tell Kelvin. We'll try to reach your family," the paramedic assured her, but she could barely hear his voice as darkness clouded her vision. The call came to Kelvin while he and Nadia were enjoying champagne on a yacht in the Mediterranean. The phone rang several times before he answered, annoyed at the interruption. "Mr. Kelvin," came the voice of the hospital administrator. "This is Lagos General Hospital. Your mother has been admitted. She's in critical condition. You need to come immediately." Kelvin's face went pale. Nadia looked up from her magazine, her expression shifting from annoyance to concern, not for the mother, but for how this might affect their vacation. "What's wrong, darling?" she asked, though she had heard enough to understand. My mother. She's in the hospital. They say it's serious." Kelvin stood up shakily, his champagne glass falling and shattering on the deck. Nadia's mind raced quickly. If they returned to Lagos now, it would ruin their trip, cost them money to change flights, and worst of all, it might bring Kelvin back under his mother's influence if she recovered. She stood up and placed her hands on his shoulders, her voice soft but persuasive. "Darling, I know you're worried, but think about this rationally. The old woman. She's been sick for a while, hasn't she? These things happen at her age. What can you really do by rushing back? The doctors are taking care of her." Kelvin looked at her in shock. "Nadia, she's my mother. She might be dying. And I understand that, my love. But consider this. Rushing back in panic won't change anything. If she's truly dying, then being there won't save her. If she's going to recover, she'll do so with or without you. But cutting short our time together, this perfect trip, that's a loss we can never get back." Her words wrapped around his heart like chains. She moved closer, pressing her body against his, her eyes filling with fake tears. "Please, darling, don't let guilt control you. We've worked so hard for this happiness. Your mother, she had her time with you. Now is our time, our season. Don't let her steal it from us, even from a hospital bed." Kelvin's breathing was heavy. His rational mind screamed that he should return immediately. But Nadia's influence had grown so strong, her manipulation so complete, that he began to doubt his own instincts. Maybe you're right," he whispered finally. "The doctors can handle it better than I can." Nadia smiled and kissed him deeply. "That's my wise man. Come, let's not let worry ruin our beautiful evening. Tomorrow we'll call the hospital for an update." That night, while Kelvin's mother fought for her life in a Lagos hospital bed, surrounded by strangers and machines, her son danced with another woman on a yacht deck under foreign stars. But time has a way of revealing all truths, and Kelvin's moment of reckoning was approaching faster than either he or Nadia could imagine. 3 weeks later, they returned to Lagos to find chaos waiting for them. The mansion felt different, colder, emptier, despite being filled with the same luxurious furniture. The staff moved nervously, whispering among themselves. "Welcome home, sir." Baba Toyin greeted them at the gate, but his face was grim. "Sir, there have been many calls, important people. They say it's urgent." Kelvin frowned, but Nadia distracted him quickly. "Come, darling, let's freshen up first. Business can wait a few more hours." But business would not wait. The next morning, Kelvin's phone rang continuously. His assistant Johnson finally reached him with news that shattered his world. "Sir, you need to come to the office immediately. The board held an emergency meeting. They voted you out as CEO." The words hit Kelvin like a physical blow. "What? That's impossible. I built this company from nothing." "Sir, the shareholders lost confidence. The missed meetings, the failed contracts, the declining stock prices, they blame your absence. They've appointed Mr. Davidson as interim CEO, and they're demanding an investigation into recent financial decisions." Kelvin's hand trembled as he held the phone. Nadia, overhearing the conversation, felt her first taste of genuine fear. "They can't do this to me," Kelvin whispered, but even as he said it, he knew they already had. That afternoon, he sat in what used to be his office, cleaning out his desk while security guards watched. The humiliation burned like acid in his veins. Colleagues who once bowed to him now avoided his eyes. His empire, built over decades, had crumbled in a matter of weeks. When he returned home, he found Nadia pacing the living room, her face twisted with anger. "How could you let this happen?" she screamed the moment he walked in. "You were supposed to be a billionaire. You promised me a life of luxury. Now what are we going to do?" Kelvin stared at her in shock. Where was the supportive, understanding woman who had comforted him just hours ago? "Nadia, I need your support now more than ever. We'll figure this out together. We still have assets, investments." But her response chilled him to the bone. She laughed bitterly, a sound like breaking glass. "Together? You think I'm going to stay with a failure? I didn't sign up for poverty, Kelvin. I signed up for wealth, status, power. You've lost all of that." As the days passed, the full extent of Kelvin's downfall became clear. The company froze his accounts pending investigation. Creditors began calling in loans. The luxury cars were repossessed one by one. The mansion, mortgaged to fund their extravagant lifestyle, faced foreclosure. And with each loss, Nadia's mask slipped further. "Sell some of your jewelry," Kelvin pleaded one evening as they sat in the increasingly empty mansion. "Just temporarily, until I can rebuild." Nadia's eyes flashed with the old arrogance he hadn't seen since their early days together. "Sell my jewelry, the gifts you gave me?" "Never. These are mine, Kelvin. I earned them by putting up with your boring family drama and your pathetic mother." The words hit him like a slap. "My mother? Nadia, she's in the hospital. She might be dying, and you're worried about jewelry." "Your precious mother," she spat, standing up and towering over him with contempt. "Should have minded her own business from the beginning. She got what she deserved." And now you're getting what you deserve too." That night, Kelvin lay awake staring at the ceiling, Nadia's cruel words echoing in his mind. For the first time in months, he thought clearly about everything that had happened. The poisoned food at the dinner party, his mother's tears, the way Nadia always seemed to be there with the right words to turn him against his family. The next morning brought the final blow. The bank arrived to seize the mansion. As Kelvin watched his furniture being loaded onto trucks, Nadia appeared in the doorway dressed in her finest clothes, her jewelry sparkling in the sunlight. "Where are you going?" he asked quietly. She looked at him with disgust. "Away from you. I'm moving in with Richard Davidson. You remember him, don't you? Your replacement as CEO. He appreciates a woman like me." The betrayal hit him harder than losing everything else combined. "You're leaving me after everything we've been through?" "Everything we've been through?" She laughed mockingly. "What we've been through is you being rich and me enjoying it. Now you're poor, and I don't do poor, darling." She walked closer, her voice dropping to a cruel whisper. "Did you really think I loved you? I loved your money. I loved your status. I loved what you could give me. But you're nothing without those things. Just a pathetic man who threw away his own mother for a woman who never cared about him." The neighbors had gathered to watch the spectacle, whispering and pointing as Nadia publicly humiliated the man who had given her everything. "You're worthless now, Kelvin," she announced loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Completely worthless. I wouldn't be seen with you on the street." She got into a luxury car, driven by her new benefactor, and drove away without looking back, leaving Kelvin standing alone among the ruins of his life. That evening, with nowhere else to go, Kelvin made his way to Lagos General Hospital. He walked through the corridors like a ghost, his head bowed in shame, until he found his mother's room. She lay in the bed, thin and frail, connected to machines that beeped softly in the quiet room. When she saw him, her eyes filled with tears, not of anger, but of love. "My son," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Kelvin collapsed beside her bed, weeping like a child. "Mama, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. You were right about everything. I was blind. I was stupid. I threw you away for a woman who never loved me." His mother's weathered hand reached out to touch his fessée. "My child, a mother's love never dies. I forgave you before you even walked through that door. I have nothing left, Mama. No money, no house, no company. I lost everything chasing a dream that was really a nightmare." She smiled weakly. "You still have me. And sometimes losing everything is the only way to find what truly matters." As Kelvin wept in his mother's arms, across town, Nadia celebrated her new conquest. But pride, as they say, comes before the fall. And Nadia's fall was about to be more devastating than she could ever imagine. She attended party after party, drinking and dancing with reckless abandon. Her new wealthy boyfriend showered her with gifts, but she missed the thrill of manipulating Kelvin. The other rich men were harder to control, more experienced in dealing with women like her. One night, after a particularly wild party where she had drunk far too much champagne and flirted with several men, Nadia decided to drive home alone. Her new boyfriend had angered her by paying attention to another woman, so she stormed out in typical dramatic fashion. "I don't need any of you," she screamed as she got into her car, the same Range Rover that Kelvin had bought her. "I'm Nadia. I'm the Queen of Lagos." The engine roared to life, and she sped into the night, her vision blurred by alcohol and rage. The city lights streaked past her window like falling stars. She never saw the truck that ran the red light. The collision was devastating. Metal twisted and glass shattered as the two vehicles met with the force of destiny. When the paramedics arrived, they found Nadia trapped in the wreckage, her legs crushed beyond repair, her beautiful face scarred by shards of glass. At the hospital, doctors worked frantically to save her life. When she finally woke up 3 days later, the first thing she noticed was the absence of feeling in her lower body. "Doctor," she whispered through her pain, "my legs. I can't feel my legs." The surgeon's face was grim. "I'm sorry, the damage was too extensive. We had to amputate both legs to save your life. And the scarring on your face. Plastic surgery might help, but it will never be the same. The mirror they brought her showed a stranger, a broken, scarred woman whose beauty had been stolen in a single night of pride and recklessness. "No," she screamed, "this can't be real. This can't be happening to me." But it was real, and it was only the beginning of her punishment. Her wealthy boyfriend abandoned her immediately. The expensive gifts were reclaimed. The parties stopped inviting her. The world that had once bowed to her beauty now turned away in disgust and pity. She was moved to a small rehabilitation facility, sharing a room with other broken souls, learning to navigate the world from a wheelchair. The nurses were kind but busy, treating her like any other patient, not the queen she once believed herself to be. Alone in her narrow bed at night, Nadia finally understood the depth of her fall. She had destroyed a good man's life, separated a son from his mother, and built her empire on lies and manipulation. Now, with no legs to carry her pride and no beauty to open doors, she faced the consequence of every cruel word she had spoken. "God," she whispered into the darkness, "what have I done? What have I become?" But some realizations come too late, and some bridges, once burned, can never be rebuilt. Meanwhile, at Lagos General Hospital, Kelvin spent his days caring for his mother. He read to her, helped her eat, and listened to stories of his childhood that he had forgotten in his pursuit of wealth. Slowly, his mother's health improved. The love and attention she had been denied at the old people's home worked like medicine, healing her body and spirit. One day, as Kelvin sat beside her bed, she smiled mysteriously. "Son, I have something to tell you, something I've been saving for the right moment." She reached into her small bag and pulled out a worn bankbook. Kelvin's eyes widened as he saw the numbers written inside. "Mama, where did you get this money?" "Over the years, I saved every penny I could," she explained. "I knew that pride would eventually destroy what you had built. I prepared for this day, hoping I would never need to use it. But now we can start again." The amount was modest but sufficient, enough for a small house, a reliable car, and capital to begin a new business. It wasn't the empire Kelvin had lost, but it was hope. "We'll build something better this time," his mother said, squeezing his hand. "Something based on honesty, humility, and love. Something that no amount of pride or greed can destroy." As they planned their modest new beginning, Nadia lay in her hospital bed, staring at the ceiling and counting the cost of her arrogance. She had gained the whole world for a brief moment, only to lose her very soul. The rise and fall were complete. The proud had been humbled, the humble lifted up, and life had revealed its greatest lesson: that true wealth is not in what we possess, but in how we treat those we meet along the way. Do you think Nadia got what she truly deserved, or was her punishment too harsh? And what about Kelvin and his mother? Did you like how their story ended? Tell us in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Roots of the African Tales for more emotional stories that open our eyes to life's deepest lessons.